Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. My name is Christina. This is a reading for Sagittarius rising, or it could be for you if you have Sagittarius anywhere in your chart, doesn't matter, and you're sort of needing an energy to balance out masculine and feminine energies. Then this reading is also for you. Or if you're just feeling called to this reading for whatever reason, then it's for you. Take it how it resonates. So the main focus of this reading today are 3 questions. What's your current energy? Where's an area that you can focus on? And where's an area of growth? So Sagittarius, I've already pulled your cards. And it feels very lovely today because as I was sort of just getting ready for the reading, I was just in this energy of listening. And I feel like that's sort of where you are, Sagittarius, because you have here the silence card to start off, right? The silence and snow, which is talking about that sort of peaceful state of almost non-expectation. You don't have necessarily any sort of set plans or anything like that. But of course, Sagittarius is all about that sort of serendipitous moment of opportunity. And I feel like that's what's coming in for you, because right after right behind this, the silent snow, you have here the movement change and then, movement speed and then the change wind, right? Both very fast moving energy. So it's if you're in this period of silence, which just means that perhaps there's not a lot going on. I was talking about in the previous reading, the Leo moon reading, that the idea of snow, right? I don't like snow. I like looking at the snow, but I don't like going out into the snow. But it's kind of I feel like whatever's coming in is going to absolutely sort of enliven you and energize you and sort of make you want to go up or have a lot of energy to do something or move towards something, which is incredible. And then you have here, again, more similar energy of the unseen, right? Something that's yet to be visible. But then underneath that, you have the one card, which is talking about oneness or unity consciousness, that kind of thing. And then here the medallion, which to me is kind of an Ace of Pentacles energy, where it's you're going to be receiving some sort of Ace of Pentacles kind of energy that will allow you to sort of create a wonderful kind of experience. So Sagittarius, it's really lovely. And I feel like perhaps there may be a link for you in the Leo moon reading, because we had here, so the Lord and Lady of Cups, which is the King and Queen of Cups, which was a slip that I had in that Leo moon reading. So there may be a link there between, if you want to go check that one out. But also, I feel like it's more so just emphasizing, for me as the reader, there was that energy of there was so much frustration within that Leo reading. Sexual frustration, but also frustration of the heart as well. Feeling they're wanting to do something but not seeing the way out, or not feeling almost helpless, and so it's causing frustration. That was the energy of the Leo reading. But for you, Sagittarius, and also the Eight of Cups, which was that whole energy. But in this Sagittarius reading, in this reading, your energy today is feeling freed from that, right? So it's kind of you're the next step after that sort of frustration, where it's kind of just accepting where you are, your circumstances, and in that sort of energy of acceptance, appreciation, and receiving, that's when you receive sort of this new inspiration which is coming in, which is absolutely gorgeous. So we're starting here with the seed, which was actually in the extended for the Leo reading. So if you want to check that out, I'll provide the links below. But this is talking about that Ace of Pentacles kind of moment. The thing about a seed as having sort of everything within it to contain, or to become life, right? Everything of an oak tree is contained within this little seed. It just needs kind of the right nutrients or environment in order to bloom, right? But it can sort of remain in this dormant state for a very long time, right? So there may be something there where there's like something in your life, perhaps an area of your life that perhaps has not been moving, or that's been remained dormant for a really long time, but now all of a sudden the right environment has arrived for this seed to sort of start blooming. Because you have here the thread, which I love so much, because I see this as like a tug, right? There's a tug perhaps on you. Well, it's funny that I'm saying that, because the first tarot card that you have here is the Five of Swords, which is not the typical Five of Swords, but more so like fishing, right? Like it's like that sort of like peaceful energy of like, of course you want to catch fish, but perhaps just like having that like silence and peace. Like the more quiet that you are, the more peaceful your energy is, the more likely the fish are to bite, right? That kind of energy. It was 555 as I said that. So there is something changing for you, Sagittarius, where it's like all of a sudden here's the tug on the line. There's something has bit the bait or taken the bait or whatever it is. But what's next here is you have the Pilgrim, which is so interesting because it talks about like a wanderer or like seeking something, but the whole idea of like not all who wander are lost, right? Like just like sort of exploring and feeling things out just for the sake of exploring, not because you're necessarily seeking anything or wanting to find anything. It's just perhaps trying different things, or just being open and receptive to the idea of wandering just for the sake of it. I feel like that's a really positive energy to be in, which is incredible, because that's exactly the sort of environment that is necessary, because the cards that you have here for the elements are the sunlight and rain, right? Which are the two things that you need, like sunlight and water, in order for a seed to grow, right? You need this element. So it's like kind of like Sagittarius, where you are right now, the energy that you're in right now is the perfect environment to sort of nurture this seed that is starting to tug on you, right? It's like, I feel like you are being, no, it doesn't feel like you're being pulled in a direction. It feels like it's arriving into your life, with this fluidity outer core. This I'm actually seeing as the arrival. It's like something like emerging from the sea or something like that. The next card you have here is the Moon Chariot. Look at this card, because it is the Chariot, but because it's the Moon Chariot, it could be something like you're receiving some sort of inspiration in your dreams, right? Like maybe you just have, like, if you're an artist or something like that, having some sort of inspiration in your dreams that allows you to like pull in something much bigger than the initial idea, is kind of how it's feeling. Like with the one card, it's like perhaps it starts off as like a small seed, but it's going to grow into something much, much larger, is kind of how it's feeling. But what I was seeing with this combination of cards today, it feels extremely otherworldly, like not of this world kind of thing. Like, you know, when people just have those like ideas that almost come from outer space, right? Like they just come from very clearly a different like external source of inspiration. That's sort of what it feels like for you. And I was just like, this card just reminded me of E.T., right? Like something extremely earth-shatteringly kind of inspiration is kind of how it's feeling, which is absolutely gorgeous. And the next card you have out is the Three of Cups, which is such an interesting card. I've been seeing so much lion symbolism recently in my own sort of experience. But the one that was coming through for you is there's this documentary called The Secrets of the Saqqara Tomb, which is about Egyptology and sort of archaeology and all that. And what one of the things that they discovered at the Saqqara Tomb, which is which is there was so much there. So much discovery happened in that site. But one of the things that they discovered was a mummified lion cub. So it was the first sort of evidence of Egyptians interacting with lions, even though there was sort of evidence in other sort of I want to say like through the text that they discovered. I don't know what I'm talking about for that aspect, but this is talking about like discovering something that is almost going to like change history in that way, where it's kind of like going to rewrite what it is that we know so far and shift that knowledge. But it's almost like it's not a complete sort of idea. It's just like a hint of it is with like the smoke, right? I feel like you Sagittarius are touching on or grasping or receiving some sort of inspiration that is not quite solid, right? It's only just the beginning. You're just getting a grasp of it. You're like finding a seed and putting it in the ground to see what happens, almost just like as an exploration kind of exercise. But what is emerging, what you're going to end up with is something that almost like changes history in a sense. And it could be very, very personal to you. Could maybe be like, I'm not saying like world history, but change perhaps your perspective on the world in some way, which is gorgeous. And then you have here the 9 of Pentacles, which I absolutely adore. This to me, this card always reminds me of like The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, which is like talking about a masterpiece, right? Like his masterpiece, the thing that he is most known for is what it is that you are touching on, Sagittarius, whether or not you know that or not. Like it feels that monumental. And I feel like even in that moment for Van Gogh, I don't know if he knew the significance of the art that he was creating. Like that story always makes me emotional because of he had such a difficult life, right? Like if any of you watched that Doctor Who episode of Vincent van Gogh, how they went into his timeline because he was experiencing all of this sort of like strange occurrences in his life. And then at the end of that episode, they took him into the Musée d'Orsay, I think it was, in France, and showed him the exhibition of all of his art that him as a struggling artist was like trying to find a meaning and place within, right? Like he was, and so what this card is talking to me about, it's like what you are starting now, Sagittarius, is something that is going to become masterpiece upon masterpiece upon masterpiece, and it's almost like as big as something that can be displayed in a museum is kind of how it's coming through today, which I absolutely adore so much for your message. And then you have the 4 of Pentacles. And this is probably my favorite card in the deck. I haven't used this deck very often because the imagery is so strange and almost difficult for me to grasp or put into a regular sort of everyday experience. But this being an onion is so tangible, right? It's an image that we all can relate to in some way. Where it's very earthy, right? The earth of Pentacles, Ace of Pentacles kind of thing, where it's absolutely something tangible in your physical environment that is going to grow. But about onions, right? Like if I'm cooking, if I don't put onions into something, it's almost like it's incomplete. It's something that's so like foundational to what it is that you're creating, but has absolutely meaning in your everyday, but also it's gonna affect other people's everyone knows what this is, right? So it's kind of like even though you may be having a very sort of spiritual, otherworldly experience, like drawing upon inspiration, what that inspiration is gonna allow you to do is create some sort of physical thing that everybody can relate to, is kind of how this is coming through Sagittarius, which is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know, like this is such a beautiful card to me. I don't know why. It's just so simple, which I love. Okay. Sagittarius. I'm going to move on to what is something that you can focus on. You have here, the first card out is the Father card, which also came out in the Leo Extended, in addition to the Seed. So those two cards together is coming through with the message that whatever this thing is, you absolutely need to nurture and grow it, and that there will be challenges, but that's sort of part of the process in order to sort of create this giant tree that you are creating, right? It's like, this is your seed. What you have now is just the start. It's the seed, but it's going to absolutely grow into this magnificent tree if you are sort of willing to put in the work, right? And this made me think of my dad. He has a very green thumb, so he knows, like, he has tons of plants in the house, but he knows that each one has its own sort of specifications in terms of how much light it needs, how much soil, or like what the soil should be like, how much water it needs, and the scheduling on like how often he needs to water each different plant. Like, there's so many plants, but it's kind of like, for you Sagittarius, this is what you should focus on, is like learning how to care for this seed that is coming into your experience, because I feel like there is this sort of there are like sort of specific elements or like scheduling or some sort of structure that you're needing to put on this in order for it to grow in a way that will expand, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. And then you have here the Gnosis card, which I'm seeing as being like this seed card expanding, right? It's like this small element just sort of growing and becoming bigger as sort of like this vortex in the spiral. But it's also talking about, like, I feel like the understanding and the knowledge that you need will be sort of given to you as you need it, is kind of how it's coming through. Like, you have the knowledge within you in order to nurture this opportunity or whatever it is, very organically, right? It's not something that you need to like actively spend time studying for. However, it does take sort of like the discipline with the Father. It takes like discipline and structure in order to grow whatever this is. And then you have here the Flame, which I love so much, because it talks about that sort of like very nurturing, like especially at the beginning stages of something, of like a new project. It does take sort of like the protection of it, right? Like you wanting to shield it from the wind, because the Father also brings in that necessary sort of like structure, discipline, and protection that is needed to give this opportunity enough space to grow, right? Or enough of the nutrients it needs to grow. This is an incredible message. But then you have here completion and West, which is talking to me about like the knowledge, right? The understanding, the key piece of information, or let's just stick with that. The key piece of information that is needed to allow this opportunity, is what I'm calling it, an opportunity to go to the next step. Because it kind of feels like right now there may be sort of like overwhelm about how big this tree can grow. And I feel like that's sort of where it's kind of just telling you to focus on the fact that you have all the information already somewhere in your subconscious or through your guides, right? Like they could be providing what the next step will be. I feel like that's sort of what it is that you're being asked to focus on is that the next step in the process will be sort of given to you as you need it. And so not to sort of feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of this masterpiece that you will be creating. It's like you will be given the next step, the next key, the next piece of information that you need as you need it. Okay. And then here, the depth lake, and the groundedness gravity card. I'm feeling like out of breath now. It's kind of like, I feel like this is such a big sort of venture or opportunity or project that you are being given access to, Sagittarius, especially because it's coming through the archaeology, right? That the documentary of The Secrets of the Sakar Tomb, where they were discovering so much in such a short amount of time. Like every single day almost, they would discover some sort of new artifact, is kind of what this is talking about. It's like there's so much depth here. And then once they sort of finished with the main tomb that they had discovered, on like the very last day where they like their funding was running out, on the very last day they had to like clean up basically everything that they had discovered and sort of move it out of the site, which was being closed down. But then on that very last day, they discovered a whole nother tomb to explore, right? And so it's like the journey restarts. It's kind of, that's what this energy is. It's like when you think that this energy is going to run dry, you're almost going to like pull up a whole other kind of masterpiece to start with, right? Because this is not just one starry night. This is like 9 of them, right? Multiple kind of masterpiece situations or events that's going to absolutely be life-giving and so much to discover. Sagittarius. This reading is so much, and I like it's so big, but it's so it feels incredibly important. But again, I feel like it's almost like this is like the far off, or perhaps it feels to you like it's far off, right? It feels like it's far off, but it's like right now you have an onion. That's like the one little sort of like, you have one onion. What are you going to do with that? You can't cook a meal with one onion. Can you? I don't know. Can you? But it's kind of like it, but you absolutely need this part in order to create any other sort of meal, right? It's like receiving the first ingredient towards something that's going to be magnificent multiple times over is kind of how it's feeling. Okay, that's gorgeous. For the tarot here, you have the 8 of Pentacles. Such an interesting image, right? It's like this frog connected to an electrical, like an EEG, a heart machine. So how I was reading this is like kind of like Frankenstein's monster, where it's like there's life, there's suddenly life, right? Something that perhaps you thought was a, but that's the thing, it doesn't feel like it's something that you like gave up on. It just feels like all of a sudden there's life in some area that perhaps you didn't anticipate there to be life or whatever it is, because it's coming out next with the 9 of Wands, which is such an interesting energy. It's coming through as like an executioner, right? Like perhaps there's an energy in the past of like you not like deciding that there was not, that this path or this thing was not possible. It's almost like someone who gave up on their dreams. Is that true? Did you give up on your dream, a past dream, but now all of a sudden there's life? It's that kind of energy with the 9 of Wands, right? Like something that you perhaps put an end to, or perhaps somebody else put an end to that dream of yours, right? They killed your dream. But now all of a sudden there's life because you're connecting with some sort of source of inspiration is what it's talking about. And I'm going to end it with this card, the Innocent, as being the Fool card, right? The Fool card. It's the very beginning of some sort of like long-term masterpiece is kind of how it's coming through for you. But it's like new life. It's the start of something. Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, Sagittarius. I'm going to end it there. The link for the extended is in the description box below. I do have other videos if you're interested in watching those. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one.